Well, Simon Wilson, thanks so much for inviting me to the training ground here today. There's been so little opportunity really for the fans to see behind the scenes for obvious reasons for the past 12 months. Let's have a little look at where we are. 9 games in for Simon Rusk, won 3, drew 3, lost 3, identical to the previous 9. We're still in 4th in the table. Just give us, from your perspective, an overview of how you feel things are going.
Yeah, I think it's frustrated. Maybe would be the best word. I think that there's been some really good stuff that's happened in this time. Whether that's new players coming in, younger players getting opportunities. Opportunities. Wins. Three good wins, including a great opening performance away at Woking. Injuries that have happened in this period of time that's probably set us back more than we would have planned to be, and also some underperformance in some areas. Frustrating, but certainly I think there's some parts of our play that are really developing well that in the longer term I think will stand us in really good stead. Talk
a little bit about that play, if you will. I mean, purely from a commentator's perspective, when I look at the way Simon Rusk is setting the team up, it seems very it's possession-based football in my view, playing out from the back, which is, you watch the Premier League, a lot of Premier League teams are setting up like that as well. It's been, for me, it's been quite noticeable. Is that a fair comment?
I think it's totally fair. I think that I think we had I was looking at some data just the other day just to kind of compare ourselves to other teams and how we're evolving. I think our possession's gone up from somewhere just underneath 50% to, it's actually 70% in the game just gone, but something around 60-65%. So we're controlling games more. What you've seen, possession can sometimes be thought of as an attacking aspect. It's as much a defensive aspect as it is attacking. And what we've seen our opposition chances go down, opposition goals go down, more clean sheets, and we're still creating a high volume of chances, the most in the league actually. Slightly, maybe one shot or one to two crosses down from kind of where we were at the start of the season. So no real huge difference in terms of the output. Just the means to getting there is changing a little bit. And I think that I've been really encouraged by some of the performances within that aspect. Ben Hinchliffe, Liam Hogan, etc., and how they've adapted to more playing this style. And that's not to say it wasn't being played before, because I can remember some fantastic performances where we were, like Chesterfield away, where we were completely dominant. We probably have tried to settle on one style of play, one formation, because the amount of games that we've got, John, and the lack of training time, to be honest, is that it's hard to flip from one to another without making sure that everybody's on message with the way that we want to play. While we haven't had the results, perhaps that we'd all have wanted, we've certainly been creating good chances. We've had goals wiped off. We've had things hit the post, penalties saved in that period of time. It's not like we're
the red cards.
The red cards. It's not like we're putting. It's not like we're not trying to win games. I think that we haven't finished some of our chances. We sometimes haven't had the luck, but we're certainly controlling games more. We're reducing the opposition's threat more, and over the long term, that's what I mean. Over the long term, if we can tighten up those areas, then I think we're in good stead with 19 games to go.
I mean, as I said, you've been here for a year now. Simon Rusk's only been here a couple of months.
Yeah.
How do you feel he's settled in? I mean, we've gone down this route of an academy, an under-23 coach, and that's not particularly new. I think Chesterfield done the same. I think Yeovil have probably done the same as well. How do you think he's settled into a full-time National League football club?
Yeah, look, I think it's a lazy label, not to you, John, but I think it's a common one, is that calling him an academy coach. I mean, I think Simon managed a team of 8 staff at Brighton, all the areas that he manages here, and he had 2 or 3 years, and it is football that's played for points in league tables that makes a difference. It's not the same pressure as the fan base we've got, but here at Stockport or other clubs. But he's kind of done the job, and I think what attracted us to someone like Simon's profile was that, you know, one of the things we set out was that we needed someone that knew the top of the game but also knew the bottom of the game. And you know, Simon's his playing experiences at conference level, winning the conference and in League Two, and as well as his coaching experiences in the Championship and the Premier League, we felt gave us that kind of both ends of the spectrum. And I think that's what you see from Simon, is that I think the main thing, when you spend time with Simon, the main thing he is concerned about is helping the players. Like, because I think that he understands what it feels like to be, you know, a conference player or a lower league player, in the sense that no one's set up for life in terms of it. Everyone's one injury away from not being able to play. In a team like Stockport, where we're trying to win, you know, players are, you know, concerned about their position in the team. So I think what I think with Simon is that he's got a huge amount of empathy to the players in terms of what they're going through, and he's there to help. And I genuinely think, you know, that's kind of what a coach is there to do. He is there to help and give us some you know, direction in terms of where we want to go as a team.
Let's talk a little bit, if we can, about the county fans. It's difficult at the moment, I understand that, because all the comms seems to be one way. They can't come and have a look around this fantastic facility, this training ground that you've now established. They can't come and look at the Cheadle End and the concourse work that's gone on, the changes around the ground. You can't have a fans forum, you can't meet them eye to eye. So it is difficult, I appreciate that. However, how aware are you of the sort of mood out there? And how accurate do you think that mood is? People still obviously angry about Jim Gannon. Not everybody, but, you know, a large proportion of fans still angry about the fact Jim's not the manager anymore. I appreciate you can't talk about the reasons that he's not here, but how much awareness have you got of the mood out there at the minute?
I have you know, I'm a football supporter myself. You know, when teams aren't winning games regularly, you know, I think that, you know, people want to know why. People want to understand the reasons, and they're totally entitled to ask those questions. People are totally entitled to challenge what's going on. That's right and that's fair. When it's constructive, it's always helpful. While I'm not on forums and social media, and I can imagine how people are feeling, and I totally, you know, I share the frustration in terms of two levels of frustration. When you don't play the way you want to play, and then when you don't get what you think you should get, and it's a rubbish feeling. You know, Saturday night on, you know, I just couldn't speak for the rest of the day, and you know, that affects your family, and it affects your life in other ways. So look, if supporters are feeling frustrated, I'm feeling frustrated too, and I think that's kind of where we are at the moment. I guess the way I've gone with it, you know, in terms of the kind of the rationale I've given myself, is that 7 points off the top, 19 games to go, you know, incredible amount of points to play for. We're not, a lot gets made out in terms of the way you arrive at a point. If we'd have arrived at this point from the bottom of the league coming up to the top, people, I think, would be hugely excited. You know, where we've been in around the 3rd to 5th position, which is kind of where we are at the moment, but potentially with opportunities missed to go closer to the top, it feels a little bit, you know, it feels a little bit more negative than it does feel positive. Yeah. But, you know, I certainly, and reminding everybody here that we're right in this. We have had our fair share of misfortune. It won't stay that way. And if you imagine the next 19 games with some improvements in performance, with a fair rubber to green, then we've got a right chance of doing something this year. And you know, I really want for supporters, whether they feel frustrated, to find it in themselves to support the club through to the end of the season. Let's see where we get to by the end of the season.
As I said, it's difficult. We're doing our best through the streams, through the website, to try and keep fans in touch, but it is difficult to do that. You're on record as saying, you know, ideally you wouldn't make a change in the managerial situation mid-season, but, you know, it's happened. But it does create issues and problems.
It does,
doing
yeah,
it
no, it does. It does. I mean, you compare doing it at the start of the season and the start of this season. A 3-month pre-season this year, in terms of time to get work into the team, in terms of to recruit against the way that you want to go and play. Doing it mid-season, it just becomes challenging in that aspect. I think Simon's had 2 weeks where he's had an extra Tuesday's training session. Every other day has been a recovery day or a prep day for a game. So you just can't get the work into the team in the way that you would do with a normal pre-season. That's why mid-season changes are harder. That said, I don't think performance is fundamentally different from where it was. I think, and again, looking at it, because I want to stay on top of this in terms of the actual metrics, I don't think we are, as I said to you, maybe having 1 less shot a game, but opponents are having maybe 2 less shots a game. So in terms of the overall pattern is about the same. We're slightly better defensively, slightly worse attacking wise, more possession, more control of the game. But overall, we kind of are performing the way we have been performing all year. I think we've got the potential to be better. I think that we've got all the infrastructure, environment and people in place now to put that in place. And I'm excited to see where we get to at the end of the season. But listen, what I would say to supporters, I'll reassure them, is that we're absolutely on it. We know the areas where we're not performing. We know the areas where we are performing but we've had bad luck. And we are making adaptations and changes all the time to improve our chances of winning, and that's what we'll continue to do. And we'll get to where we get to, and we'll get to there as quickly as we can.
Let's talk a little bit about your specific role, Director of Football. I did a little bit of research before I came here today, and I think there's about half a dozen clubs in our league that have a Director of Football. But as you go up the pyramid, Leagues 1 and 2, I think around half the clubs there have got a Director of Football or similar, something along those lines. To you, what is the role? What exactly, what are your priorities? What do you do?
Yeah, look, I think I'm there to, you've got 2 sides of a club. You've got the football part and you've got the commercial side, and you've got a board of directors and an owner that's willing to invest.
And you sit on that board. Do you go to attend board meetings? And
yes, that's right. Yeah. So we have an overall plan in terms of where we want to get to. We have a financial strategic plan in terms of the level of investment to get to that position in a set timeline. And it's my job to run the football side of things in order for us to get there. And you're doing this my role as a director of football is to focus on both the short, medium and long term. I always sort of describe it as a clock. So you've always got like the second hand ticking, which is your day to day, in terms of things that are going on and making sure that works well. You've got the minute hand, which maybe takes one level back from that and starts to look at things, in terms of teams of people working game to game or so forth. But you've also got the hour hand that sits even behind that to sort of, see what the long-term direction of the club is. And we shouldn't be doing things short-term at the expense of the long-term, and vice versa, not doing things at the long-term at the expense of the short-term. So it's my role to sort of sit in between those things, take the overall strategic plan of the club, try to ensure that that's happening within a timeline and a budget that we've got. Now, other clubs operate without a director of football. Other clubs operate really well without a director of football. It's not a mandatory requirement, it's a choice. But I think somebody has to have the responsibility for looking at the club in that way. And that can be a CEO in some cases, it can be a board member in some cases. Yeah. In this case, and in some other cases that you mentioned, it's a full-time role in the club, working on the strategic elements, but also working on the day-to-day elements to make sure that those things bridge together.
I'm really interested. Obviously, I was on the board for 7 years as a director of a part-time football club. I think probably 3/4 of every single board meeting, and they went on for hours, was about the budget. And I can tell you the budget to the last penny for pretty much every season that I was on that board. Is Mark Stock throwing so much money at this that you don't know what the figure of the budget is, or have you got a budget?
No, we've got a strict budget.
Yeah,
we've got a strict budget. Yeah,
a really healthy budget, presumably. Though
it's a good budget. I think we we've been benchmarked within the National League for having a top 5 budget.
Right.
we're not the biggest budget in the league.
Okay.
That might be surprising.
Because that's the other thing, we always knew pretty much what everyone else was spending as well, and you've got that sort of information.
Yeah. No, the National League are great in that respect. I think everyone has to submit their financial data to the National League, and without telling tales out of school, they won't tell you who's got what budget, but they'll benchmark where you sit within that framework. And we've been told that we're a top 5 budget, and I think we, going into this year in terms of the planning, maybe when we acquired the club, is that we may have thought we were going to spend more,
right.
Through to COVID, through to different challenges. In one way, we brought our investment back a little bit. It's still really healthy, John. It's a good budget. We were able to do a lot, as you saw in the transfer market. But I think it's important. I think there is a perception out there that we are the Real Madrid of non-league or whatever. Going out and getting whatever we want. We've got a healthy budget. We're able to do nearly everything we want to go and do. But there is a clear number that we have to stay inside, and we are inside of that. So that's where we are. In
terms of your role, then, how will you be measured? What sort of KPIs are you going to be set as time continues?
Yeah, I think I need to be measured on the performance of the football club over the medium term. I don't think I can be so cosy that it's a 10-year. Is the first conversation that you're having about how's this going. I don't think it's either the last 5 weeks either. I don't think is fair, but I think it's somewhere in between, and I think that what you always sort of say to yourself is you want to leave the club in a better place than what you found it. We found this club in a good place. I always say that. I've said that before when we spoke. Given the context of the way, the club you had and the operating challenges that you had.
We were just trying to find a Mark Stott to come along. That's all we were doing.
Yeah, but you did more than that. You did more than that. You had, the team that came up, and I know it took a while to get that out of the previous division. Yeah. But the team that came up was competitive, had a good average age, was sensibly structured in terms of salary scale and all the rest of the stuff. So it wasn't a hard thing to take over. The main issue we had was that if we were going to go and challenge to win the league or to be promoted out of the league, that we did need to make some changes, and that was including a full-time structure up from a part-time structure. Yeah. The environment that they were working at, to get some stability. No, we're on this pitch, no, we're on that pitch, or we can't be there.
We were quite nomadic,
yeah. And obviously improve the level of players and so forth.
In terms of the way you're going to measure your results, then is the medium term, as you said. Let's just talk, if we can, a little bit about your background. We've talked briefly about you were a consultant for Prozone, which I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
Because a lot of the conversations we have are you back it up with evidence, and you've talked about expected goals, you've talked about patterns of play and possession and so on. And I think what you did at Manchester City, or Manchester City Football Group, I should say, over 10 years. I mean, they've got a huge analysis department. You really believe in this, don't you? It's not just...
I believe good management teams, they have a blend of the right people around the table. And as much as you have the really analytical, logical, objective person, you also need the wild, creative, illogical person. Because if you don't take any risks, what do they say? All progress relies on the unreasonable person. So it is that.
And poor data can lead to bad decisions as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah, 100%. So it's always a balance. My opportunity after playing into the game, my entry route was through this. I was coaching before that. An opportunity arose when Prozone were a startup company back in 2002. They were expanding. I got an opportunity to do that. That took me straight into Premier League football. I took that advantage. I'm not an absolute obsessive stats guy. There are people that are far better than me, far more experienced, far more qualified. You've got people that have PhDs in astrophysics that are coming into the game now. That's not me. You know, no, please don't ask me any questions. Even my my maths homeschooling with my 8-year-old is not completely up to scratch. But I do believe in starting from a logical base and then going from there. And football is a low-scoring game with a high amount of randomness in it. We all know from the games you've watched, you can play well and lose. You can play great, you can play bad and win. Both those things happen. You can get a bad referee decision. You can hit the post and it come out or go in. You could have a goalkeeper that suddenly pulls off a worldly save by just guessing and going the right way. All these things happen in the game. If one of those things happen, it doesn't suddenly mean you're brilliant or terrible. So you have to look at the background data to sort of say, okay, in general, are we performing? Are we doing the things that we want to go and do? And how well are we doing it? How does that benchmark against our competition? And I sit here right now having looked at that because I have access to that stuff.
Yeah.
We're performing well. We're performing well. We can be better, and we know where we can be better.
Well, we can be better at scoring goals, can't we? I mean, that's a stat that we can all look at, and it's quite clear.
Yeah.
One of your roles, presumably as director of football, is recruitment, and is that you're obviously as concerned as I am and Simon Rusk about the lack of goals. How do you address that now?
The first thing you have to do is with the strikers that we've got aren't trying not to score goals.
Yeah.
And we have one striker that's performed pretty well at that. So again, going back to sort of Simon before, you have to empathise. You have to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Let's not forget this is a weird time for everybody, and we are seeing players that potentially have performed better previously within goal scoring, not performing this year, and it's not as easy to say they're bad players. You get people like the biggest example of Torres going from Chelsea to Liverpool, serial goal scorer in one club. Couldn't hit a barn door in another. There's loads of things that go on. So, the first thing we want to do is give people an opportunity to improve if they want to, and give them, tips and opportunities to train and so forth. One thing we've struggled with this year is getting people game outside of our own games program because of COVID and because of and so on. But at some point, you do start to look at other options, and whether that's other people that we've brought on short-term loans. Just to give potentially other players breathing space to play their way back in, or to see if there are outstanding opportunities that we want to take as a club.
Because I mean, one of the criticisms I've read in the last few days has been that there seems to be a scattergun approach to recruitment. We've got a huge squad now, lots and lots of players, and the squad's bulging. And as you say, you can't get players out at the moment. Is that a fair criticism, or is there a rationale behind that people aren't seeing?
I mean, I think that we always started this year with a 20-man squad. That's what we wanted to do, which is in some cases larger than the National League, aspect. We in the last period have had at least three key longer-term, medium-term injuries, which have meant that we've had to re-recruit. They were 3 high-performing starting players. Yeah. So you then have to say, well, okay, do you replace them with somebody from within your 20? Some of those players may not have been performing at the higher level, or may not play those positions. So in some cases you do have to go out to the market to recruit. We're not bringing people in on long-term permanent signings. A lot of these are short-term contracts to cover.
It's deliberate, this, though.
Of course it is. Of course it is. There's extra rationale inside it as well, in the sense that we are into a phase now where we're going to play so many games. If these injuries have occurred in the past, you can expect that they're going to occur in the future as well. So it's about having cover and balance in the positions that matter. Look, again, when at the start of the year, when you write the plan, you're not writing a plan to have a squad as big as we currently do have. You're not writing a plan to have other aspects of the pitch changing, in terms of off the back of the weather that we've had and so forth. Some of these aspects you just have to roll with and make the best of. But like right now with the additional players that we've got, we've now started to work with 2 training groups. You know, we have Damien Allen, who's doing a fantastic job, you know, any time of bridging that gap between the academy and the first team. We're having young players that are getting great exposure now to training at Carrington, to training with first team players, you know, and developing relationships with those players as well. You're giving, you know, first team players real clarity about where they need to improve and opportunities to do that. So it's not all negative. It's not like these players are sitting around twiddling their thumbs and creating disharmony in the group. We've got a really tight group, a really together group. You know, like I said before, I think everyone's sort of really focused on the cause here of doing the best they can do for county.
I know he's a little bit camera shy, Mark Stock, but when you speak to him, what kind of vibe are you getting from him at the moment? How's he feeling about?
Frustrated as well, like, gosh, yeah, like the conversations we have and the text messages we have and the wider group is like, you know, it goes from despair to head scratching to elation. You know, it's all those, which is just like the normal life of a football supporter, isn't it, John? Yeah. It's like, Mark's frustrated. Mark's desperate for County to do well. You know, he's so passionate about this club and what we're trying to do here. He isn't somebody that sits still and waits for things to happen. He wants to try and make things happen. So he's always on, you know, can we do this? Shall we do that? What about this? Have you thought about that? You know, sometimes they're great ideas, sometimes they're not so good ideas, and I tell him that. You know, what he is relentless in terms of trying to improve, trying to get better, and trying to get there quickly. So that's the type of communications we have.
And Simon Rusk, I was talking to him earlier today, and he was telling me about, he sees a lot of parallels between his early days at Brighton and what's happening here at County now. He thinks there's a lot of parallels there. And what that would probably explain that, what looks a very ambitious target of the Championship in 7 years, but that's deliberately ambitious, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's that, you know, that thinking of reach for the stars, you know, that type of thing. And it, they're helpful to push people, to make people believe, to think big, and that's good. It's not good when people feel the pressure of that. Everyone's built differently. Some people really, you know, jump for that type of stuff. Some people look at it in a way they're slightly scared by that. You know, we've got to be mindful that we don't overweight people with you know, long-term targets that are far away. You know, the long term is a series of short terms that get. It's a bit like that clock. It's like you have to take care of the day to day to get to the week to week, to get to the year to year. So we've got a kind of a mantra here: the right people doing the right things, you know, and that's it. And we just really focus on people really focusing on the process, focusing on their role within the bigger picture, doing that as well as they can do. And 7 years will take care of it. 7 years. You know, you've seen teams that do it in 5. You've seen teams that do it in 15. I think if I'm a County fan, you just want to do it. You know, you just want the club to get there. And if the club get there, whether it takes 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it takes, as long as we get there. You know, I think that the last 10 years have been hard, you know, in terms of, in that way. Yeah. But in that sense, the club stayed alive. It's had good people. It's had great days in those last 10 years. And it's not like everything stopped until they got back in the National League, for example. Just like everything won't stop now until we get, you know, back in the league. The club will get back in the league at some point, and it will continue to progress. And if you've got the right people around it, it will continue to get better and better and better.
I think you're right. I mean, you know, again, thinking back to, you know, myself and Gary and Richard and Steve and Malk and Simon sitting around that table, you're worrying more about just, you know, day to day, paying the bills, keeping afloat, making sure you're sustainable. So it's great that you've got this broader vision now. A couple of, you tell me if they're myths or not, a couple of myths that I've read recently, that we're going to be a sort of feeder club for Manchester City because of your connections with City. Is that true?
So then we'll be a feeder club for Brighton because of Simon, and maybe for, I don't know, Motherwell because of Mark McGee. No, of course not. Of course not. But what we will do, John, is like we have an amazing development environment here in terms of the pitches, the coaching, the infrastructure and so forth. Why wouldn't we use that with really good young players? And what I'm finding now is word gets out about yeah, really the environment here and the project, you know, Mark's funding and so forth, is we're getting inbound more from lots and lots of clubs that are more willing to send their best young players here.
Definitely,
And we've seen that just this week with Jack Stretton, and it's you know, we've had clubs ask for partnerships with us and so forth, and we won't sign anything formal or whatever, but we will find good people, good clubs out there for mutually beneficial things. Of course we will do that, why wouldn't you?
And in terms of recruitment, team selection, how heavily involved in that are you?
Recruitment, team selection?
Recruitment of players and picking the team on a weekend.
I don't ever pick the team. No, it's nothing to do with me. In terms of what has always been the case here is that the manager of the football club will have first say and last say. And what I mean by that is that the manager will say what they feel they need in terms of if they need an attacking left back or they need a defensive midfield player or whatever. Myself and the scouts will go to the market to see what's available at what different budget. Based on what we've got, we'll present back options, and then the manager will take the final pick on that way. The manager, you know, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work, you know, and it's not fair. I think the manager needs the tools to say to, you know, players, I brought you in to do this, not the director of football brought you in to do this. It's irresponsible for the club to give the manager the budget when they fall in love with it. Often managers are so time poor, they'll only remember the last game they played and if someone played well in that game, whereas myself and the scouts can look at the whole market, not just English, but Scottish and so forth as well, and look for the best value and the best fit. So when it works well, it works really well. If it doesn't work well, there's a disconnect between two, then it doesn't work, and you don't get the best of that relationship.
Listen, I know you are desperate to get in front of the fans as early as you possibly can. We all are, but you particularly, I think, want to sit down with the fans and be able to talk to them face to face. I think that would really help everybody concerned, but it's not possible at the moment. Whilst it's not, if we can carry on doing this, I think that'd be fantastic. So I think it's been really, really good today. If you've got a message to the fans or one final message you can give to them before we wrap up today.
Yeah, I think. I hate if there's negativity around, John. I don't think that's going to help anybody, and I hate it. I don't think there's it frustrates me that if we're there, but and overall, I don't want this to be a negative football club. I want this to be a club that's very together. You know, we always talk very much with Mark and get Mark down here a lot because Mark's very human in his way, and some of the best clubs, the most progressive football clubs, are so joined up from the top to the bottom. And the supporters, and the club inside, and the supporters on the outside. The tighter we can be, the more together we be. That for me describes a good football club. I'm really sorry if people are feeling, you know, partly because of potentially stuff we're doing, or partly because of COVID or whatever. If anyone feels outside of that, they don't feel connected to the club. That's not how we want to be. No way. And if it takes more time for me to get out and spend time with supporters, absolutely, that's what we'll do. I
think our feeling of being disenfranchised is shared by clubs across the country, isn't it? It's not unique to Stockport County. I think every fan is feeling that now. It's been a long road, hasn't it?
Yeah, I totally. And you know, in this interim period where there's not a lot else to do, things can get exaggerated. You know, one way or another. We're seeing such terrible, information about mental health and how people responded to challenges in their life, and it's exaggerated by the situation that we're in. It works both ways. Things are absolutely amazing or terrible based on the fact that we have a lack of balance in our life at the moment. Look, we're here to hopefully provide a little bit of joy, a bit of connection in a world where there isn't a hell of a lot of that at the moment. You know, for however people are feeling at the moment, we're doing well. We've got an opportunity to achieve something really special this year. You know, I'd just really like everyone to come together and you know, let's put our best foot forward and try and achieve that.
That's brilliant. Well, listen, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it, top man.
Come on.